think about what it is that we could do with some of our technologies to really get out there and make a difference. And we saw right off the bat that sanitizing and disinfecting was going to become a very, very big deal, just based on this virus and how it was spread. And we saw, I mean, literally within the weeks, you know, Clorox was out of sanitizing, and sanitizing wipes was gone, and prices of solution was going through the roof. And so it really, when we sat down and thought about it, it was the perfect time for the Hypogen system. And essentially what this Hypogen system is a hypochlorous acid generator. That's all it does. And hypochlorous acid, I know all of you guys have been through your CPO classes and know what the solution is, but I'll tell you just briefly. Hypochlorous acid is the key element within the chlorine family. So when you have a swimming pool, which is always the easiest way to explain how this works, and you inject bleach into the swimming pool, the bleach is not effective because the bleach is going in at pH 12 to 14. The way you make it effective is you lower the pH. And when you bring the pH down, you allow the hypochlorous acid to come out of the solution versus the hypochlorite ion. And the lower you lower the pH, the stronger the hypochlorous acid, the more the hypochlorous acid. And you can see that easily in your ORP reading. If you have an ORP, when you add bleach, ORP is not great. As you bring pH down, ORP increases. That's because the hypochlorous acid molecule is coming out of solution and is coming out of the hypochlorite molecule. And that really is all that it is. The hypochlorous acid generator, aka the Hypogen, produces a chlorine solution where we control the pH down to a way lower level than we would typically in a swimming pool, which means that we produce 95 to 97% hypochlorous acid. We do it using the same components we use on a next-gen system. We do it using the same technology we use on our Chlor and next-gen systems. So it's a proven platform that we've used for the last 20 years in our 15,000 plus systems that are operational in the pool industry. We went ahead and mounted this on a skid, brought it in, and make the hypochlorous acid. So what I'm going to go through here is the history you guys don't need to know about. I'm going to look at the hypochlorous acid generator, the Hypogen, how it operates, why it operates, and how you use it. So it's a standalone generator. So what you see on this skid is what you get. The system arrives and plug it into water. I'll show you how that works now. It produces hypochlorous acid, also known in the industry as NEW, which is neutral electrolyzed water, also known as EAU or ECA, electrically chemically activated water, or also known as superoxidized water. So there's a bunch of different names for the solution. It's all hypochlorous acid. And hypochlorous acid is free chlorine with a pH that's been controlled. What we use in our process, and there's different ways to do it, what we found the most effective way to do it is we use water, we use regular salt, the same salt you guys use on our next-gen systems, we use vinegar for pH control, and we use electricity. And the reason we use vinegar is an effective pH buffer, but it doesn't allow the gassing of the chlorine, the same as muriatic acid does. Muriatic acid gasses it very quickly. Vinegar doesn't. It stays in situ and controls that pH for a longer period of time. So what you get in the box, you see our crate that arrives, you get a Hypogen system, you get our single tank salt feeder, which I think you guys already got one and you tried it, and it's a great product, works really well. And you get our acid feeder. When you take the system, that acid feeder is filled with vinegar or acid, acetic acid. Salt feeder, obviously you fill it up with salt, and the Hypogen system is on wheels. Simply wheel it in. So what you have is the skid mounted system using our reverse polarity cells. We decided to go with reverse polarity because we all know when it comes to cleaning, nobody ever does it. They all say they're going to do it, but they don't do it. And by using the reverse polarity cell, we allow us to use just regular fresh water. We don't even need a water softener coming to our machine. So it made the install nice, quick, and easy. So we've got our normal 15,000 hour reverse polarity cell. We then have a holding tank. That's a 20-gallon holding tank sitting on the skid. And that system fills the solution with 20 gallons of hypochlorous acid. We have our power supply using our switch mode power supplies that you find in our claw units with the PLC control system that you find in our next-gen system. So you're used to our touchscreens, you understand our touchscreens, the same format as the touchscreen using our switch mode power supplies. And then we use a custom, well, with a skid obviously, and we use custom Stenner pumps that Stenner made for us that allow us to control the system. These are DC pumps that Stenner made for us in order to use the solution properly and in order to inject the solutions that we want and be controlled by our PLC. So how this system works is fairly simple. You set up the system, set it in the location where you want it. You connect the salt feeder to the salt pump, exactly the same as you would do with a next-gen system. Nice and easy, using the same fittings, exactly the same way you do a next-gen. You then take our acid/vinegar container and you connect it to the second pump, exactly the same as you do in a next-gen system. You then take a regular garden hose and fit it to the machine. So now you've given the machine water. You've given it salt, you've given it vinegar. You then turn the system on. It goes through a priming function, sends the water up through the cell, produces the hypochlorous acid in the cell, goes into the holding tank, fills up the holding tank. So now you have 20 gallons of 1,000 ppm of hypochlorous acid. And just to give you an idea of the concentration that we make, 1,000 ppm is 0.1%. Okay? We make it at 1,000 ppm because it's the most efficient way for us to make the solution. When you use it, the majority of people out there are using it at either 200 ppm if they're looking to sanitize, or 500 ppm if they're looking to disinfect. So you're either mixing that solution that comes out of our tank 4-to-1 or 50-50, depending on how it's going to get used. So if you've got 20 gallons of solution sitting inside that tank, at a 50-50, you've essentially got 40 gallons of usable product. And at a 4-to-1, you've essentially got 120 gallons of usable product. So it's a lot of solution that comes even our smallest of the machines. So you now have this 20 gallons of solution sitting in our tank. You want to use it. You open up the valve and you fill up your container. As you fill up your container, obviously you take solution out of the tank. As the system senses that you're taking solution out of the tank, it turns back on and fills up the tank. We use auto level sensors on it, so when the system fills up, it turns off, tells you the tank is full. When you use solution, once the tank gets to half full, it turns back on again with a second level sensor and fills it back up again. And it just continues to do that over and over again. It's a fully automated system. So once you install the system, there's no more that you need to do short of making sure that there is salt in the salt container, the same as you would do with a next-gen system, and making sure that there is vinegar in the vinegar container, the same as you would install, you would put acid into the next-gen system's holding tank. So you're using the same platforms, the same thing, except you're injecting it into a Hypogen system versus a next-gen system. But the rest of the components and the rest of the methodology is exactly the same. That tank will always sit with 20 gallons of hypochlorous acid in it. As you use it, it will refill, and it will automatically do that on a continuous basis. There's nothing else that any operator or you needs to do on this machine. So why the Claw King system and why new? Well, think about it this way. Hypochlorous acid is a key and known sanitizer. It's very, very effective. It's available on demand, on site, as you need it. It's easily disposed of because it's 99.9% water. It is non-corrosive. We control our hypochlorous acid at a pH of about 6. When you have a pH of 6 at 200 ppm solution, it is completely a non-corrosive substance. It kills viruses. It's non-flammable, and you don't need any PPE equipment when using it. So if you think about the average disinfectant and sanitizing solution that you're purchasing, whether you're purchasing bleach, 6% bleach from Home Depot, or whether you're using standard pool bleach at 12%, or whether you're using Clorox or anything else, there's always downsides to any of those disinfectants. There's always a downside to using those particular products. Hypochlorous acid itself is a non-corrosive, easily used solution. And hypochlorous acid and people don't generally understand this, hypochlorous acid is exactly what the body makes in order to fight bacteria and ailments. So if you cut yourself, or you get an infection, or your body has an internal issue, what happens is it rushes white blood cells to the point of infection. Those white blood cells get to the point of infection and release hypochlorous acid on the infection. And that's what fixes the body. So hypochlorous acid is actually what is used with the body. And it does it through the body's use of electricity and salt. Salt is in the body and electricity is available within the body. That's how it makes hypochlorous acid. The body's pH is already neutral, so it uses that same neutrality. So essentially what we have here is a bleach generator, a sodium hypochlorite generator, where we are controlling the pH very precisely. And by controlling the pH, we make sure that all of the solution is hypochlorous acid and very little is hypochlorite. And the big difference between the two solutions and why it is so effective is this. Hypochlorite is a negatively charged solution. Hypochlorous acid is neutral. So when you have a virus or you have a bacteria or you have biofilm, those are all negatively charged molecules. If a hypochlorite molecule tries to penetrate, it tries to penetrate a negatively charged ion, and there's a repelling effect, the same as if you were to put two magnets together. And that makes it very difficult for hypochlorite to get into a virus or a bacteria or a biofilm molecule. When you have a neutral solution, a neutral pH, a no charge, it allows it to penetrate the cell walls of any of those particular organisms and inactivate them very fast. And so it's simply the charge that allows it to do it. And so that's why when you use bleach, the way you overcome the hypochlorite molecule is with concentration. And so you have high concentrations of bleach, which allow you to come over it. But high concentrations of bleach equals corrosion, equals danger to use, all the rest of the stuff that we already know about using bleach on a consistent basis. When you want to go down and you want to spray a surface, or you want to spray somebody's office, or you want people to use the solution on a daily basis to disinfect and sanitize their facilities, you can't use standard bleach unless you dilute it way down. When you dilute it way down, you lose its efficacy because bleach itself is not pH corrected. It has a pH of 12 to 14, and that's the way it's made. And there's no way to bring bleach's pH down without controlling it with acid. And so in this process, we basically make all the disinfectants and sanitizing solution on the skid for people to use for anything. Hypochlorous acid is approved to be used on food contact surfaces. It's approved by the USDA to be used in food preparation. It's approved by the EPA as an effective disinfectant and sanitizing solution. So what you've done with this machine is exactly what we do with a next-gen system. Instead of buying the bleach, or instead of buying the chlorine on a consistent basis, or instead of buying the disinfectant solution on a consistent basis, your customer is buying a machine that is making the disinfecting and sanitizing solution on site all day. They're buying it non-stop in this machine. The CDC, if you look at what they're talking about, how to spread germs and how to spread viruses, what they're saying is stay 6 foot apart, cover your mouth. When you're in public, wear a mask, don't touch, clean and disinfect. These are all from the CDC. This is what they're all doing. What we're doing with hypochlorous acid is that key, cleaning and disinfect frequently. If you try and clean and disinfect frequently with expensive sanitizing and disinfecting products, the companies are going to go under just from the cost of trying to clean and sanitize, or they're not going to do it frequently because it's too expensive. The solution that this produces is effective and inexpensive. So you can clean and disinfect very, very frequently. The solution itself, again, is the most effective disinfectant in chlorine. It has a neutral charge which penetrates its walls. It reacts rapidly, and it has, because of the pH control at 6, we're at about 95% free available chlorine with an ORP consistently over 1,000 in our solution. All of you know ORP is the key to how effective an oxidizer is. We hold that solution at an ORP above 1,000 consistently. And that's the key about the solution. It's an effective, easy to use, powerful oxidizer with an ORP of over 1,000 in 200 ppm. Very, very, very effective. And that's the key to it. So the applications for the solution are endless. And what we've seen over the course of the last 3 months is everything from fire departments ordering these machines. They're using these machines and they're using the solution to disinfect both the inside of the ambulances, their entire fire trucks, and all of their PPE equipment. So all of their life support saving equipment that they bring in when they come back from the field gets sprayed with hypochlorous acid consistently. They found it to be non-corrosive, very effective to use, and it inactivates and destroys everything and anything that has come in contact with it. We've found country clubs ordering these machines because country clubs have to disinfect and spray their golf carts non-stop. Every single time some guy comes back from a round, they disinfect the entire golf cart. They use it throughout their entire facilities. We've had a big demand from schools. Schools have got to find a way to go back in the fall. Whether they like it or not, most parents will simply kill their kids if they have to homeschool them for another quarter. So the schools have got to find a way to get back. They're going to have to sanitize and disinfect those classrooms on a non-stop basis, including their cafeterias, their hallways, and everything else. So schools is a big deal. Obviously, everybody knows about cruise ships and the issues that they're having. Parks and recreation, restaurant, gyms. I mean, it's just endless the number of places that this can be used as a direct, effective sanitizing solution. So the application methods for this solution are easy. You can put it in a spray bottle, you can put it in a fogger, or you can put it through a tunnel. There's a company that we did a deal with not too long ago called Extreme Cubes. And what these guys are doing have made big cubes that they're going to be putting in front of football stadiums, large venues. And when people walk into those venues, they're going to go through these cubes to be sanitized and disinfected. They're using our hypochlorous acid to sanitize and disinfect as they go through the tunnel. What these guys did, because they wanted to be sure that the solution was effective, they actually hired a laboratory that went into a nursing home that was full of COVID. All the rooms were full of COVID. And they actually went in and did tests, laboratory tests against COVID itself, and to see the effectiveness. And they used 180 ppm of solution. And COVID was eradicated when they used it. And so they felt confident that, A, they tested it on fabric. So people walked through there, their eyes didn't burn, their noses didn't hurt, their fabric wasn't bleached. Nothing happened to the people themselves as they went through the solution, but it was 100% effective at inactivating COVID at a 4-log reduction. So very effective, very easy to use. The key with this system really, and you look at the Hypogen, the specifications and the difference between the models, the key with this solution is the cost. So the same as that you have with NextGen and you have with Claws, the cost is in the machine. Once you have the machine purchased, the cost of the raw materials is very low. The key with this system is how low the cost it is to make the solution. So to give you an example on cost, you have the raw materials being salt, water, electricity, and vinegar. If you add all 4 of those, it costs about 3 cents to make a gallon of solution. 3 cents to make 1 gallon of 1,000 ppm hypochlorous acid. So your cost to produce the solution is absolutely nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So if you think about a facility that is going to need to disinfect and to spray and to wipe down surfaces on a consistent basis, non-stop, country clubs, schools, YMCAs, you name it, what better way for them to have a solution than that's 3 cents a gallon? There is nothing that they could possibly buy that would be that cost effective. The cost, again, is all in the machine. So whether they go capital purchase route or whether they go leasing route, the cost is in that machine. The cost of the raw materials is absolutely nothing. The Hypogen 2 and the 5 are the most popular models. We have a bigger one, which is the Hypogen 25, which makes really a ton of solutions. So it's probably not effective for most of the markets that we're in right here. Both of them sit on a skid. The one produces 0.1 gallon a minute and the other produces 0.25 gallons a minute. So the real difference between these two machines is one fills that tank at 6 gallons an hour and the other one fills that tank at 15 gallons an hour. So it's simply the speed at which it fills that gallon. From your perspective, so that you understand these machines, this Hypogen 2 uses our 2.0 cell. So the Mini 2.0, that's the cell, the Mini 2.0. The Hypogen 5 uses our 5.0 cell. So the Claw 5 MSM, that's the cell that's used on the 5 pound. Exactly the same otherwise. Same standard pump, same power supply, same tank, same cell, same housing, same coating, just a 2-pound cell on the one and a 5-pound cell on the other. One makes 144 gallons a day, one makes 360 gallons a day. They're both pH adjusted. It leaves the factory at 6. You can adjust the pH anything from 5.5 to 7. We don't recommend messing with the pH balance because at 6 we're at 95 to 97% hypochlorous acid, and it's a nice stable solution. It makes the solution at 1,000 ppm. So again, an end user is going to either dilute it 4-to-1 or 50-50, depending on how they want to use it. And salt and acid usage, like it shows over there, is very low, very easy, very consumable. So when you're talking about a Hypogen 2, to give you an example, if you fill that acid feeder with vinegar, and we use typically 30% vinegar that you can buy from Home Depot, and you mix it 50-50. When you fill that tank and you fill the salt feeder with salt, you probably only need to replace that solution once every 2 to 3 months. That's how long that solution is going to last. So it's not like they have to go once a week and fill those containers up. The solution lasts a long time because it's so concentrated. And so you're looking on average at about every 2 to 3 months to have to fill those containers. There's very little work that has to be done. This is a completely self-staining, self-operating machine. We would also recommend on this machine that you do the same thing you do with a next gen and replace those Steno hoses once every 6 months. This is a 120 plug-in system. So you simply plug the system straight into the wall, no other requirements. Installation, the original installation setup, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 hours from the time you uncrate it, put it where it's going to be, get water to it, prime the salt and Steno hoses, and get the machine turned on to make its first batch. You're probably looking at 2 to 3 hours. Thereafter, very little time that's required in it at all. Standard 120 outlet with 15 amp breakers, so there's no special power required for this machine. Simply roll it in and plug it in. On this model, you're looking at 56 inches high, 19 inches deep, and 45 inches wide. It's not a very big machine. We are looking at making some adjustments in the product itself to try and make it a little bit smaller to even help with even a smaller footprint. But as it stands right now, that's it, skid mounted with that onboard tank sitting on it exactly as you see it over there. From placement PO, typically a 3 to 4 week time period on lead times, and that goes a little bit up and down depending on the demand. We've been pretty consistent to be able to keep it around the 3-week lead time. And cost, again, end user cost on this machine is anything from 19 to 34K. And then again, we have the same old normal leasing options that we have on all of our products. Let me jump into some questions here and go through these, and then I can show you a couple of other things. Let's see what we got here questions-wise. Oh. All right, there they are. So it's just our standard power supply, standard switch mode power supply that we use on our 2.0 and 5.0 MSM models. And so the system fills up, that tank fills up, and it fills all 20 gallons, and the level sensor turns it off. We only turn it on again when it gets back down just under half. And we do that because we want to consistently make high quality product. If we kept topping it up, the product shelf life on this thing is about 30 to 40 days. So you've got a good month to use what's in the tank. But if we allow it to drop down halfway, we're consistently adding a good solid 1,000 plus ORP ppm solution in there. So that's why we have it set at those particular levels. Hook the same garden hose to water versus salt vat as well. So the salt vat is auto-filled from the skid, same as NextGen does. So you don't put any water to the salt vat. There's a valve on the skid itself. When you bring water to the skid, you open that little valve and it will automatically fill the salt vat. So we've figured that one out, works nice and easy, and you don't have to worry about it. Water into the vinegar container, you need to bring your own water or add water to the vinegar container because you have to do a 50-50 dilution. So there'd be no ways we could auto-fill the vinegar vat with water. So all that you do is when the vinegar vat runs out, you add vinegar and water at a 50-50 ratio. Nice and easy. You can get regular vinegar from the grocery store. Yep. Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, and many grocery stores sell vinegar. We use 30% vinegar. So it's not your standard 6% vinegar that you can buy from Kroger or from Aldi's. You got to go and get the commercial vinegar from Home Depot, Lowe's, or Ace. But we use the 30% vinegar, and you just dilute it 50-50. We want 15% concentration in our tank. Alex, how long does it take to fill from half capacity? Well, the smallest model fills at 6 gallons an hour. So once we're at half capacity, we've lost 10 gallons. So it takes about 1 hour and 10 minutes to fill the tank from half capacity. The Hypogen 5, the next one, fills at 15 gallons an hour. So it'll take roughly 30 odd minutes, 35 to 40 minutes to fill from half capacity back up. All right, Mike Pinter, what is the active shelf life of the product in the tank? So yeah, we did tests, and we've been testing nonstop. We start off at about 1,050 ppm in that tank when it's made. After 30 days, we're at about 975 ppm. pH has dropped from about 6 to about 5.7. So we're still great. We're way in the hypochlorous acid range, and we're still very effective. ORP is still over 1,000 within 30 days. What we have recommended, just because the solution is so cheap, that if you don't use the solution at all and that tank sits there for 30 days without being used, dump it and restart if you're going to start using it. So once it's over 30 days old, dump it because it's so cheap. But as long as you're using some solution through the course of 30 days, we're automatically adding 1,000 ppm to that tank, so our dilution ratio is up. So as long as you're using some solution during that course, 30 days is still fine. We're on, right now, we test it every single day, and we have tanks that we've been testing. Right now, we're on day 47 or 48, I think, of consistent testing, and our ppm is down in the low 800s with our pH still in range. So we can see that pH, that ppm is dropping off consistently over the course of period, but it's still very effective solution. Can we adjust the voltage in hertz? This system is 120 through 240, 50, 60 hertz. There's no adjustments or changes needed. It'll use and it'll work on any power, anything from 120 to 240, 50, 60. So we don't need to change a thing on this one. Are there any wearable items on the other than the Stena tubes? Outside of the cell, which we all know is a wearable item, nothing else is wearable items on these. Again, we do the component modular design so that you can replace any component at any time. This is the same 15,000 hour cells that we use in our reverse polarity models, which typically we see about a 36-month, 3-year life. Our estimation will be longer life, obviously, on this because the runtime is going to be way down unless somebody uses all the solution all the time and the cells are forced to run nonstop. But that's not been what we've seen to this point. Most of the people that are using these machines are filling the 20-gallon, and then the system sits idle for a good day or two before it needs to turn on and make solution again. So we really foresee that the cells on this are going to be more of a 3 to 5 year cell, probably longer, but we'll only know once we get to those points. Everything else is exactly the same components that you guys are used to seeing on our Claw and next gen systems. There's nothing else on this that is anything different to those products. The only one other difference is that we use a solenoid valve on this as opposed to an electrically actuated valve. This solenoid valve has proven to be very, very reliable for us in other products. And we decided to use it just because it's not an all-on, all-the-time product. It turns on and it only operates for an hour or 2 or 3 and then turns off and sits idle for many hours. So the solenoid has worked out pretty well. It's also fresh water. We're not running anything other than fresh water through that solenoid valve. So we've seen good reliability out of that. What does a gallon of hypochlorous acid cost on the retail market? So hypochlorous acid, you can buy HOCl, which is hypochlorous acid. You can buy it on the retail market, and there's many companies that sell this solution. And they sell it to medical, they sell it to grocery stores. And it used to be anything from $8 to $9 to $10 a gallon. What we've seen with the corona outbreak is these guys are looking at charging $20, $30 a gallon, which is completely outrageous, where the system is producing the solution at 3 cents a gallon at 1,000 ppm. These guys are selling 200 ppm usable product at $10 to $12 to $20 a gallon. I mean, it's completely outrageous. Now, here comes the trick with the solution. And the trick always is government and EPA. So we are a EPA registered facility, and we are allowed to sell our devices, including the Hypogen, under our EPA registration. So we can, and you can, sell this device to a facility for the facility to make solution for themselves and use this as an EPA approved solution. What you can't do, and what a facility can't do, is buy a machine, make solution, and then sell the solution to other people, because we do not have an EPA registration on the solution. We have an EPA device registration on the device. Now, we have decided, and we did decide about a month ago, to go ahead and EPA register the solution as well. It is a $50,000 to $60,000 exercise and takes us about 6 months, but we saw a demand for potentially the solution as well. So we have started that process. We're probably about 4 months out from getting the registration on the solution. That will then give us and you the ability to not only sell the machine, but to sell the solution as well. And we thought that was a good way to do it once the EPA solution is registered. But for now, it's fully registered by the EPA as a device and can be used by anybody at their facility as long as they're using the solution for themselves. What are the sizing parameters when you go from a 2 to a 5? When do you sell a 25? So the 25, to give you an idea, it makes 1,700 gallons odd of 1,000 ppm solution a day. So the companies that we're selling the 25 to are, like I showed you in that slide, the extreme cubes. They're using the 25 model because they're going to be fogging that solution nonstop. They're not going to turn it on and off as people walk through. They're just going to keep it running. And so they need a ton of the solution. They're using it at just under 200 ppm. And so they need a lot of solution. So when it comes to those type of facilities, a continuous use type facility, you're going to look at the 25. But anything in your potential market, whether you're looking at resorts, hotels, schools, country clubs, YMCAs, any of these type of markets, the 2 and the 5 are going to be plenty, because on the outside, the 5 at 350 to 360 gallons a day at 200 ppm usable product means you've got 1,500 gallons of solution available a day in that system. So that's a lot of product. Now, one of the things that you can do, and Chris Peck up at Streamline up in the Northeast has been very successful with this machine, and he's found some different ways of using it. What he's also doing, instead of just having the onboard 20 gallons sitting on the system, we're using, and he's using, a transfer system to also transfer solution out of that into a bigger holding tank, so that the system fills up a 300-gallon holding tank of solution on top of the 20 gallons sitting on board with the system. That way you have a lot of usable product at any time. And he's done that because one of the school districts that he was looking at, they wanted to every morning give to all of their school districts a whole lot of solution. And that would have been more than 20 gallons. And so they didn't want somebody to have to then sit there and wait for the machine to fill up. So they wanted at least 200 gallons of usable solution available at any time. So we just added a transfer system that we have available to fill up a larger tank, and that gives them the available solution quick and easy. Cruise ships could be a market where you need a larger size, most definitely. The cruise ship could. Now, one thing I would caution you on, the Hypogen 2 and 5, we don't provide any type of off-gas system with it, because it makes a very small amount of hydrogen, and the pH neutral vinegar doesn't really gas out of there. So we don't feel the need to provide any type of venting to the system with the 2 and 5, as long as it's placed in an area that is fairly well ventilated. So you don't want to stick it in a broom closet. But as long as you put it in an area that has some type of air movement, the 2 and 5 are fine. The 25 produces a lot of solution and a lot of hydrogen. So that comes with our standard next-gen forced venting system, the same as you would see on a next-gen. And so that 25 does need to be vented to atmosphere. So you will need to pipe that exactly the way you would pipe a next-gen. You do need to vent that one to atmosphere, and it works exactly the same as the venting does on a next-gen system. Using Chris Peck's example, what is the total output capacity of the 1, the 5? Okay, so there's no 1, there's a 2 and a 5. total capacity is 144 gallons a day on the 2. So it can make 144 gallons in 24 hours. The 5 can make 360 gallons a day. So in Chris's example, they're putting a 5-pound there. That'll fill that 300-gallon tank up in 24 hours. And then they foresee that they will use 200 of those gallons every morning. So they'll have 100 left over. I personally can't believe that they will use 200 gallons a day on the 4 schools that they're going to be doing. But they decided, as opposed to putting one machine at each school, they wanted to have one machine at their central school and then make solution and distribute it to each school each morning. Makes financial sense, no doubt about it. They just needed a larger holding capacity on that. The size of the containment tank on the 25-pound system is 30 gallons. So it holds 30 gallons as opposed to 20 gallons. Again, it's fairly easy to just do a transfer system into a bigger tank if you want. You could put, and you can transfer, if you think about the 25-pounder, that system can transfer 1,700 gallons a day into a bigger tank. So you could put a much larger tank. What the Extreme Cubes are doing, and which is probably a viable option in some of the bigger markets, they're also adding a dosatron to the system. And what the dosatron is doing is automatically diluting the solution down to what they want to use it at. So if we've got 1,000 ppm sitting in our holding tank on board, their holding tank that they want to take out, they only want 200 ppm. So we added a dosatron to that, which auto dilutes the solution. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the dosatron product. That auto dilutes the solution down to 200 ppm in their holding tank. So when they go to use the solution out of their giant 1,000-gallon holding tank that they've got, it's already at 200 ppm. It's an easy install. We've just done one for them in Vegas. In fact, Harden is out there right now finishing up this one in Vegas for them right at the moment for one of the casinos that they're starting it on. It's a very easy way to do it. And in those high quantity type solution ideas, that's a good way to do it. Send it with a dosatron to a big holding tank at the concentration you want to use it at. For the majority of what you're going to be doing, hotels, motels, country clubs, schools, they don't need that type of complex install. It's going to be simply roll the system in and then use the solution as they want to by diluting it in their own jugs or their own backpacks or however they're going to get rid of the solution. We found fogging very effective with the solution. You can walk around and fog it. Electrostatic foggers are very, very good with this machine. The problem with foggers right now is there's none available. Nobody can find any anywhere because foggers have become so popular as everybody's trying to fog any type of system that they've got. So fogging is a little bit of an issue trying to find the foggers. If people already have foggers, it's a great way to go. All right, I think that is what I've got on here. I just wanted to show you one other thing quickly before I take any other question, and that was the pH curve, and so that you can see the HOCl effectivity and why we do what we do. So let me share this quickly. So there's the pH curve for chlorine, and you can see when you're at a pH of 10 plus, everything you have is hypochlorite. That's what comes out of bleach. So the pool bleach that you're using and injecting to a pool, everything is hypochlorite. As you reduce the pH, so the amount of HOCl, which is hypochlorous acid, increases. And when you get to a pH of 7.5, which we all know in the pool industry, you have 50% hypochlorous acid and 50% hypochlorite, standard teaching in a CPO class. As you reduce that pH more, you increase the amount of hypochlorous acid. When you get to about 5.5, you're at 100% hypochlorous acid. And it stays there until a pH of about 4, and then it starts to drop off. And what it does when it drops off is you now have chlorine gas. And so you've now gone from the hypochlorous acid molecule to the chlorine gas molecule. And as you do that, you now start to gas off. So there's a tricky band where you want to keep that hypochlorous acid. It's why we start at 6, which gives us about 95 to 97%. And then as the solution sits in that tank, pH slowly but surely drops off. And our goal is to make sure that we don't get down below about 4.8, 4.7, which is giving us a hypochlorous acid of 100%, but no gassing effect. And so that's the key. And so by keeping it in that 6 range, for us, it's very important. And that's why we use vinegar, because vinegar is a very stable, consistent pH buffer. And what it does, unlike muriatic acid tends to drop off much faster and then gas much faster. Vinegar sits in solution and stays in solution. And so we don't have that same effect that we would with hydrochloric muriatic acid. And that's the key. That is the key really of hypochlorous acid, is the controlling of the pH, making sure that you keep that pH in that band. That's what makes the solution very effective. And that's what makes the solution so reliable to be used. It's all a matter of the hypochlorous acid molecule. All right, any other questions that we have? Let me stop sharing this here.
I posted one other question, Steve.
What was it? I'm not seeing it. Oh, hang on. Per EPA, can a country club make solution and distribute internally within the organization? Yep. Yep. You just can't sell it. But they can, like that school, they're making solution at their school and they're giving it to their other 3 schools that are part of their district. No problem with that at all. And the hypochlorous acid has already been approved by the EPA as effective against COVID. So EPA has already approved it, and there's already a bunch of companies that have got on what's known as the List N, which is the approved solution to kill COVID list with the EPA. So the testing has already been done. People already know that the hypochlorous acid is effective. The EPA already knows. They're just restricting people from using it as a registration until they themselves have approved each and every single solution, which per the EPA takes forever. Matt had a question about DOT. No DOT restrictions because we're 99.9% water. 99.9% water. 0.1% hypochlorous acid. So there's no DOT restrictions, no OSHA restrictions as far as using the solution, no PPA required, no double containment laws. There's nothing that you need outside because the solution is very, very, very mild when stored. It's negative, any negative on plants, or can it be used on equipment? So I will tell you that University of Florida has been testing one of our machines with this hypochlorous acid for about a year now. And they've been testing the solution at 200 ppm and at 150 ppm and at 100 ppm on citrus. And they want to see if the hypochlorous acid solution will inactivate and destroy a lot of the bacteria that they're finding on oranges. And to date, they have been very successful. They won't give us the exact details until their 3-year study is over. But one of the things that they were trying was citrus. They're looking at grapes. So there's many people that are looking at the solution for use on a bunch of different things. We did a study with another company at the VA that was having Legionnaires outbreaks. And they were having Legionnaire outbreaks because of biofilm accumulation in their pipes. Typical bleach has no effect on biofilm. And it's because of that negative charge. The biofilm shell is so hard, the hypochlorite molecule cannot get through and destroy the biofilm. We added hypochlorous acid to that pipe, and within 1 week, the biofilm was all gone and the Legionnaires was gone. And Legionnaires didn't come back again after the introduction of the hypochlorous acid. It's an incredibly powerful solution. But the greatest thing, and we do it here, and I'll show you, this is a little spritzer bottle. Now, we use hypochlorous acid in this building exclusively. We don't buy any outside disinfecting chemicals. So we use this solution to fog. We fog twice a day. We have guys that walk through our offices, and we fog the entire place, and we're at 70,000 square feet here. We fog everything. We fog all working surfaces. We also clean all our bathrooms, our floors, everything with it. And everybody gets these little spritzer bottles, which we use as hand sanitizer. So this is 1,000 ppm of hand sanitizer. This is 1,000 ppm of hypochlorous acid in here. And I can spray it, and I do all the time. So does my family, so does my kid. I can spray it on my hand, and I can feel it's nice and soft just because it's got a little bit of salt in it. So it's nice and soft. I can feel it. Smells a little bit like chlorine because it's 1,000 ppm of chlorine in it. But I can spray it on my tongue. It doesn't do anything to me because the hypochlorous acid is exactly what's in the human body. So it's perfectly usable. Now, if I fell out of my chair right now and I started flicking on the floor and going crazy, you guys do need to call a doctor ASAP and tell them what I just did. But the solution is very effective. Very usable. My 7-year-old carries this around with him and sprays his hand when he comes out of a grocery store. So that's the beauty of the solution. Very effective, easy to use, safe for everybody and anybody that uses it, but will inactivate and destroy everything and anything that it comes in contact with. We did one study, and we just finished it up. Our guys in Mexico did it, and they brought it to me this morning. And at 1,000 ppm, we did E. coli and a bunch of other bacteria, and we got 99.99999% destruction in 30 seconds, which is basically 7 log destruction in 30 seconds, which is incredibly powerful. So a great solution, works well. The solution itself is tried, tested. You can go online and search HOCl or hypochlorous acid, and there's 50 different companies selling it in spray bottles. They're selling it as wound care. They're selling it as sanitizers. They're selling it for everything and anything. The key with this technology, and you guys know it when it comes to the pool technology, the key to this is how do you make a machine that's reliable, that makes the solution consistently all the time? That's the key. Because there's jokers out there that are trying to sell machines. And we bought one. It was a $1,000 machine. We wanted to try it out, and it broke in 3 days. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous what these guys had made. We looked at the power supplies and how they had done it. It was outrageous. So we've used all of our switch mode, next-gen technology with the experience that we know how to make solution nonstop, and we put it into this Hypogen. So that's the key when selling this product, is not necessarily just hypochlorous acid. The solution is well known. Everybody, you guys know how powerful the solution is. What customers need to understand and what they need to know is the reliability of this product based on our platform of the products we already make. And that's a machine that they can roll in, put in, and is going to work 24 hours a day if needed for as long as they need to make solution at a very cost-effective rate. That's the key with it.
Do we have any other questions from the team?
We ordered a fogger. There was one that came in. We then decided to try different things. So we ordered a paint sprayer. We went to Lowe's and bought a paint sprayer, and we fog with a paint sprayer, which works like a dream. That works very well. The key with fogging is you want to get the micron of the droplet as small as possible, because you don't want a whole lot of water sitting around. So you can have a spray bottle, but a spray bottle is going to leave some water behind. Ultra fine fogging is the best thing because the water evaporates before it hits the surface. And again, we use the solution exclusively, and we don't wipe down anything. So we spray door handles, we spray all over our office all the time using this solution. And we then don't wipe it down afterwards. We just leave the solution sitting on there, which makes it very, very effective.
Steve, we want to thank you. If there are no other questions, for a great presentation and for coming up with the technology, you know, to begin with, you know, you always show the leadership and coming up with cutting edge stuff, and we appreciate it. It costs some money, and it's a big commitment, but that's why we're part of the team. Yep.
No, it's a product. I'm not going to lie. We're very proud of this product. It has worked very well. We had it just at the right time. All right.
Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks to everybody for joining.
Thank you, Team CES, for the good participation. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
We'll order one for the office. PO's on coming.
POs, I'll do a special price.
The PO is PO1.
I'll do a special price for CES.
Right, Mike? Okay. Thank you.
0001.
All right.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks,
All right.
Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
All righty, guys. Bye.
Steve, we want to thank you. If there are no other questions, for a great presentation and for coming up with the technology, you know, to begin with, you know, you always show the leadership and coming up with cutting edge stuff, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Team CES, for the good participation. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.